Okay, this is section 4.3, probably one of our last easy sections for a while. This one is on multiplication of polynomials. So again, I can't believe this says 5.1. It's supposed to say 4.1. Typo. If you did not watch the 4.1 videos, it is going to keep coming back to haunt you because every section has exponent rules in it pretty much for the rest of the book. So I'm just going to remind you, if you did not get through those, make sure you do because you need them for every problem on these 2 pages. So to multiply polynomials, we learned in section 4.1, you multiply the coefficients. Just like normal, -2 times 3 is -6, but we don't multiply exponents. In multiplication, we learned you add exponents. So -6 and then 3 plus 7, 10. So that is how we multiply polynomials, and we're going to need to use that skill over and over and over again on all the problems from this section. So first we're going to learn how to multiply a monomial by a polynomial. So I think you're all familiar with the format. You distribute, but now we have to be following the the exponent rules that you learned in section 4.1. So yes, you know how to multiply, but now you have to multiply and follow the properties of exponents. So multiplying the front numbers, we get -20. And then remember, there's imaginary ones here. So that would be x to the second. And we add the exponents because this is a multiplication problem. So -20, x to the second. And then from the second, you're going to have positive 32x. And then just like always, when you have 2 or more terms, you have to make sure, whoops, I said 32x and I wrote 32. And you need to make sure they're in descending order. So x to the second, x to the first, good to go. So that's my answer. If it's not, you do have to rearrange it. So you have to make sure and leave your terms in descending order. So -20, x to the second, positive 32x. And same thing when you have a fraction in front, it's still just multiplication. A half is easy. You don't even have to pick up your calculator because you just say, what's half of 8? Well, half of 8 is 4. Then you deal with your exponents. So every variable has an imaginary 1 exponent if it's not present. So 2 plus 1 would be x cubed. A positive times a negative is negative. Half of 20 is 10. And then you bring over the x squared. That won't change since there are no x's there. Are my terms in descending order from highest to lowest? Yes, they are. And I can't combine them, remember. If they're not like terms, don't add or subtract them. So 4x cubed minus 10x squared. Okay, so now we know how to multiply a monomial times a binomial or a polynomial. Now we need to talk about how do we multiply a binomial times a binomial or a binomial times a trinomial. Most of you learned FOIL in high school, and we use that for 2 by 2, 2 terms by 2 terms, so that we call it a 2 by 2. And FOIL stands for first, outer, inner, and last. So that's the order that we do the terms when we are foiling. And remember, foiling only works when you're multiplying 2 terms by 2 terms. So my F will be here. F means first term in the first parenthesis times first term in the second parenthesis, and that is 8x squared. And if I had a top 5 most used things in your life of math, foiling would definitely be one of them. You do a lot of foiling in this class and in your upcoming classes. O, outer, means the outer of this one multiplied by the outer terms of that one. So outer means outside. We first do the signs. So a positive times a negative would be negative 14x. So let's put our F. Let's put our O. Then I'm going to get a different colored pen because I'm going to be writing over the top of that. Inner is multiplying the inner by the inner. So inner by inner. And I'm going to move that 2 by 2 over here since I just covered it up. So inner means inside. So positive times a positive would be plus 20x. And I kind of like to write my like terms underneath each other. So since it's a like term with that, I'm going to keep that there. And then I have L-foil, which is the last term in this parenthesis times the last term in that parenthesis. So that's my L. So I look at my sign, positive times a negative, negative 35. So first times first, 8x squared, outer by outer, negative 14x, inner by inner, inner meaning they're inside, positive 20x, and I line those up since they're like terms, and last term by last term, negative 35. So then I combine like terms for my final answer. 20 minus 14 is positive 6x minus 35. So we're going to do a lot of foiling in this section and in later sections. Huge concept there, so I would definitely highlight that. That's a biggie, knowing how to foil. And if you took Algebra 1 in high school, you probably remember it somewhere. Okay, now 5 cannot be foiled because it's not 2 terms by 2 terms. Foiling only works when it's 2 by 2. This is 2 terms by 3 terms. So what I do is I distribute. First times first, first times second, first times third. And then after I'm done with that, then I'll distribute the 4. So let's do this one first. So remember this is a 1. So this is going to be 2x to the third because we add exponents in multiplication minus 3x squared because 1 plus 1 is 2 and minus 2x. So we took the first term in the first parenthesis and multiplied it by all the terms. So positive 2x cubed, negative 3x squared, negative 2x. Now we take the 4 and multiply it by everything in the second parenthesis. So we have positive 4 times positive 2x squared, that'd be plus 8x squared. And just like we did over here, line up your like terms. It makes them so much easier to add later on. So as you get like terms, just put them underneath each other. Remember, like terms mean they have the same variable, same exponent. And then positive 4 times negative 3x is negative 12x. So here's its like term. And then last, positive 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. So that turns into 2x cubed. 8 minus 3 is positive 5x squared minus 14x minus 8. Look at the descending order, x to the third, x to the second, x to the first, and constant. So we are good. It's in descending order. There aren't any like terms to combine, so that will be my answer. So that multiplication, we just used distributive. And this is really distributive too. You're taking the first times the first times the second times the second times the second. We just gave it a fancy little name called FOIL, but it's really distributive. Same process we did here. FOIL just gives it an order. So students have enough to remember. So whenever I come across a formula that they have no reason whatsoever to have to remember, I say, cross it out, guys. Why? Because this is a FOIL problem, this is a FOIL problem, this is a FOIL problem. We know how to FOIL. Why should we have to clog our memory with formulas that we won't even remember when it comes time for the test anyway? So if I know an alternate method that students already know that's just as easy, I stick with it. I don't want you to clog your memory with all these different formulas and then not be able to remember them on the test. Remember one thing. Remember when you see 2 terms by 2 terms to FOIL, and that's all you need to remember. So this is a plus b squared. It's just a plus b times a plus b. It's a FOIL problem. This is a minus b squared. This is a minus b times a minus b. It's a FOIL problem. This is a FOIL problem. So no need to clog your memory with more things. Just remember the basics. 2 terms by 2 terms is FOIL. So we're going to use that to work on the next problems. So 2 by 2 tells me to FOIL. So there's my F. Here's my O. So let's do those first. First times first, remember, add your exponents, 25x squared. Outer by outer, 5x times positive 1 is plus 5x. Inner by inner, this is inner, and then last by last, L. So inner by inner, negative 1 times 5x is negative 5x. So put it underneath its like term. And last is last times last. A negative 1 times a positive 1 is negative 1. So first, 25x squared. Outer plus 5x. Inner, negative 5x. Last, negative 1. And so look what happens here. 0x, which means don't write it because 0x is 0. 0 times x is still 0, so my answer is 25x squared minus 1. So with 1 minute of work, I got to the same point I would have gotten using the box, but I didn't have to remember a new formula. Okay, so it's just plain and simple FOIL whenever you have 2 by 2. So why don't you go ahead and turn off the camera and try number 7 on your own, and then come back and we will check it together. Okay, F. 3 times 3 is 9. And now you have to add the exponents for m, 1 plus 1, and add your exponents for n. So it's m squared, n squared. Each one must have its own exponent. From O, I get negative 24 mn. From I get positive 24 mn. And from L, I get negative 64. So once again, those are gone. 24 minus 24 is 0, and I get 9m squared n squared minus 64. I L.